throw it up in
Sean.
the
That's what
air.
it's
I play
called.
catch with myself. I can actually do all this at one time.
Are we
Amazing.
still doing the foam football, or have we graduated to
All right, you know
actually
what?
an NFL style football?
Tomorrow is the Ingraham hotline. Call the number and talk about Ingraham, and don't suck up to her like the last time.
You know, I have to say something, Sean. I watched you and Michelle tonight, and I completely agree. They have to release those videotapes, just like in Vegas, at the Vegas shooting. This sheriff Israel's like skating along with all these cliches.
Not to destroy Trump media, always fair and balanced. Thank you for being with us. Let not your heart be troubled. Here's Laura. No, watch. It's like this. Seriously, you can't do a simple. I thought you said you were athletic.
Oh my gosh, I'll beat you at any sport, anytime. Don't
any
even try
sport,
that.
anytime. Really?
What
Seriously?
is this? I don't even know how to do that. You know, it's called obsessive compulsive disorder.
I throw it up
Sean.
in the air. I play catch with myself. I can actually do all this at one time. Amazing.
Are we still doing the foam football, or have we graduated to actually an NFL style football?
Tomorrow is the Ingraham hotline. Call the number and talk about Ingraham, and don't suck up to her like the last time.
You know, I have to say something, Sean. I watched you and Michelle tonight, and I completely agree. They have to release those videotapes, just like in Vegas, at the Vegas shooting. This sheriff Israel's like skating along with all these cliches and all this obfuscation. We need to know what happened, and you and Michelle are totally right. We're going to talk about arming the teachers tonight.
If we put the retired military and retired police, conceal carry, protect every kid, and give them, if they do 15, 20 hours a week, you get your taxes free, state, federal, local. It won't cost a lot.
Anything that keeps money away from the government, I'm all for it. So that's another great idea. But yeah, it was a great segment. So really
have a great show. Thanks, Laura.
All right, Sean, take care. And good evening from Washington. I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle. We had a roller coaster news day, including an uproar among Second Amendment advocates over remarks made by President Trump. Plus, Trump confidant Roger Stone tells us what the special counsel may be trying to pin on the president and on him. And later, tonight's angle on the ICE chief blasting Oakland's mayor, calling her, quote, no better than a gang lookout after she tipped criminals off to sweeps and raids that were done over the weekend over the last 3 days. And some in Hollywood, this is unbelievable, are trying to push Ryan Seacrest off the red carpet at the Oscars. I know that's going to make you cry. And just as Barbara Streisand is blaming gun violence, of course, on the president. We'll have all the details. But first, is President Trump giving away the store on gun rights? During a bipartisan meeting with lawmakers this afternoon, the president shocked Republicans, yours truly included, and Democrats alike after saying this.
I like taking the guns early, like in this crazy man's case that just took place in Florida. He had a lot of firearms. They saw everything. To go to court would have taken a long time. So you could do exactly what you're saying, but take the guns first, go through due process second. You have to look at the age of 21 for certain types of weapons. I mean, some people aren't going to like that, but you're going to have to look at that very seriously.
Well, he looked at Pat Toomey at one point, and Pat Toomey, who did the bill with Manchin, that's being proposed, and Toomey says, well, that's not in our bill. And the president says, well, you know why? Because you're afraid of the NRA. I was just stunning. He also added that he wanted to strengthen background checks for gun buyers. That's fine. And the problem is those policies have been fiercely opposed by the NRA and other advocates that he said he was standing with on most issues. A little bit confusing. And joining us now to discuss this and a lot more, Jeff Sessions' fallout, is Republican Congressman Ron DeSantis and Fox News senior political analyst Britt Hume. It is so great to have both of you on the show. Britt, I don't think you've been on the Ingraham Angle before, unless I'm really losing my mind. So thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
I have. It's not my first time, Laura. I've been on your show before.
Okay, that's right. You were here in studio with me. Thank you very much. Britt, what about this Trump bipartisan meeting today? Had the cameras pulled in. It was interesting. He was sitting next to Dianne Feinstein. And you had Manchin and Toomey there who had come up with some interesting legislation. And then the president kind of hits Toomey and says, well, you're afraid of the NRA. And I don't think Toomey seems to be afraid of the NRA on most any issue that I know of.
I think that's right. And Toomey had, I don't remember the exact words, but Toomey had a pretty good comeback. So it'll go in the books as president attacking Republican senator, but I think it was something the world will little note nor long remember.
Ron, Congressman DeSantis, on this issue of this meeting today at the White House, I mean, Twitter blew up, social media blew up, because people watching this didn't know what the president was advocating or saying. And at one point, Dianne Feinstein said, well, what are we going to do about these weapons of war? And he basically seemed to say, well, we should look at that too, as in, either maybe an all-out ban. It was just very difficult to follow, but she seemed to be kind of rubbing her hands together, saying, oh, goody. Now, maybe this was all just a show, but, and I know, you and I are big fans of the president, but this was a wild thing. I mean, it was not cool for a lot of people who believe in the Second Amendment.
Well, I think the overall debate, not just with that meeting, but since this has happened, you have an instance in which the authorities had dozens of calls and visits to this shooter's home. People in the school knew that this was somebody who had serious problems. Obviously, he got kicked out of the school. So you had all these red flags. And of course, the FBI was given a specific tip that he was going to commit a school shooting. And yet they fell down on the job. That is the number one issue that comes out of this. And then I think there are obvious things that we should be doing on a state and local level to harden the schools, to provide more visible security, and to deal with the mental health issues. I mean, all that stuff can be dealt with. I think you could get really good, even bipartisan support. I think when you start going into waters that Dianne Feinstein wants to go down, that is just not gonna, that dog's not gonna hunt in the Congress.
Yeah, well, every time you take the guns and then go to the court later, I wasn't following any of that. But we have to get to the bad blood between Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, and Donald Trump. This continues, and I know, Britt, you tweeted about it today. And so did the president. The president started by saying, why is AG Jeff Sessions asking the inspector general to investigate potentially massive FISA abuse? Will take forever, has no prosecutorial power, and already late with reports on Comey. Isn't the IG an Obama guy? Why not use Justice Department lawyers? Disgraceful. And Britt, you said this is Trump at his worst. He's asking the DOJ to investigate itself. The inspector general has his own staff of lawyers, investigators, et cetera. Britt, let's go to you first on this. What's happening here with this continued frustration the president obviously has with the attorney general? And is this wise?
Laura, I think it's fairly simple. I think the president's conception of what an attorney general is supposed to be is to be his political protector, his political and legal protector. And as you and I both know, Laura, that is absolutely not what the attorney general is supposed to do. He's certainly supposed to advise the president on legal and perhaps in some cases ethical matters, but he is not supposed to run the Justice Department use the Justice Department to run interference politically or legal for the president. And the president has been disappointed from the jump with Sessions because he thought Sessions over there at Justice would be helping him out in dealing with the Russia matter and so on. And Sessions, quite properly in my view, recused himself. And in this instance, quite properly turned to the Inspector General of the Department to investigate alleged misconduct by the Department rather than having Justice Department lawyers investigate the Justice Department. So I think the president is clearly off base here. And I think the nation has been well served by Jeff Sessions. And we all should hope that Sessions will stay on the job regardless of this hazing by the president.
Congressman DeSantis, you also tweeted on this matter, and you seem to disagree on the best way to pursue these FISA abuses.
Well, you're right, Laura. The Inspector General, I mean, he's a fine guy, but he doesn't have any prosecutorial power. He can't hold anyone accountable. He'll take 1.5 years to write a report and offer recommendations. And there's a time and a place for that. But from what we've seen over the last 6 or 7 months, just the scores of people who've been demoted or have to leave these agencies, a bunch of different potential offenses ranging from false statements to disclosure of classified information, you need a special counsel who can actually pursue those matters, somebody from outside the Justice Department who's not afraid to upend the apple cart. That's what we need in this situation. The IG just not going to cut it.
When we look
Laura,
go ahead, Brett.
Laura, I was just going to say, if you're looking for a quick investigation that won't take very long, as the congressman suggests he'd like to see, the last thing on earth you need is another special counsel. They famously take forever. They build up huge staffs, and they run far afield from their original purpose. So I've had constitutional debates about special counsels. I think regardless of that, they're a bad idea anyway, and that the last thing on earth we need is another one of those.
Other than Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump, the only other person that has been with President Trump by his side in campaign or governing mode has been Hope Hicks. And today was announced that she's going to be leaving the White House in the coming weeks. How big of a story is this, Britt? And will that further perhaps destabilize the situation in the West Wing?
Well, I think she's a loss to the president because he trusted her, and by all reports, she was very able, wise, as John Kelly said, beyond her years, and was an effective advisor to him, and I suspect steered him away from his own impulses sometimes and helped to showcase what he did well. So I think she's a loss. I don't think that it is that her departure is any kind of a scandal or reflects badly on her. I suspect she'd had enough. 2 years in that job at her age is a pretty long tour of duty, and I suspect that the opportunities awaiting for her on the outside are extraordinary, and I don't blame her at all for seeking to take someone up on one.
Yeah, and Congressman DeSantis, I'd heard some time ago that she wanted to, move on to something else. And, other networks are saying, oh, this is because she had 9 hours of testimony at House Intel and it was grueling, and the white lies comment. And they're trying to tie this to the recent facts. But I think she was kind of, gearing down months ago, but she stayed on because she wanted to help the president. Your thoughts, very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, those are Schiff leaks about her testimony. Take that for what it's worth. She's been with the president from the first day of the campaign. So she's been at this a long time, and it's not an easy job on both the campaign or the White House. So she was very respected, and I think she did a good job for President Trump.
All right, thank you both. And no matter what comes of the FISA investigation, Democrats are hoping that Special Prosecutor Bob Mueller will find evidence of wrongdoing by the president. Republican strategist and Trump confidant Roger Stone joins us now to share what he believes Mueller is now investigating. Roger joins us from Miami. Roger, it's great to see you. These leaks keep coming out, don't they, of the Mueller investigation? And we'll get into a lot of it, but some of it is now seeming to focus on whether Donald Trump knew about those WikiLeaks hacks or the emails that WikiLeaks had of John Podesta and the DNC. And your name keeps popping up.
So she's been at this a long time, and it's not an easy job on both the campaign or the White House. So she was very respected, and I think she did a good job for President Trump.
All right, thank you both. And no matter what comes of the FISA investigation, Democrats are hoping that Special Prosecutor Bob Mueller will find evidence of wrongdoing by the president. Republican strategist and Trump confidant Roger Stone joins us now to share what he believes Mueller is now investigating. Roger joins us from Miami. Roger, it's great to see you. These leaks keep coming out, don't they, of the Mueller investigation? And we'll get into a lot of it, but some of it is now seeming to focus on whether Donald Trump knew about those WikiLeaks hacks or the emails that WikiLeaks had of John Podesta and the DNC. And your name keeps popping up as a potential intermediary between, I guess, implied, the Trump campaign and Julian Assange. And I know you've been over this before, but this is all out there again today.
Laura, this is an attempt by the handmaidens of the Democratic Party and the mainstream media to reinflate the deflated Russian collusion delusion. Let's be very clear. The truncated, doctored screenshot published by the Atlantic magazine actually proves that I had no advanced knowledge of the source or content of the WikiLeaks disclosures regarding Hillary Clinton, and I never claimed that I did. Julian Assange himself has said Roger Stone merely retweeted and followed what I was saying and tweeting. Absolutely true. And to be absolutely clear, I never discussed the WikiLeaks disclosures regarding Hillary or John Podesta, which I also had no advanced knowledge of, with candidate Donald Trump before, during, or after the election. there's just literally nothing there. Now, all this material that was released today had been turned over to the House Intelligence Committee months ago, but this is an attempt to essentially reinflate a false narrative.
But don't you also see a shift happening, Roger? They were set on the collusion narrative, and they've tried, but it doesn't seem to be really going anywhere. So now you sense they're moving to a compromise narrative, namely that the president reportedly must be compromised in some way by Russia, hence his soft treatment of Russia. And I want to play something for you from your dear friend Jeffrey Toobin this morning on CNN. Let's watch.
Why has Donald Trump been so favorable to Vladimir Putin? What is in it for him? A very clear possibility is business, is money, is that he has business dealings in Russia that he has wanted to cultivate. I just wrote a story in the New Yorker about when he brought the Miss Universe pageant to Moscow in 2013. That led directly to the meeting in Trump Tower of June of 2016.
So now, Roger, Miss Universe pageant is brought into the equation on the Mueller investigation. Thoughts there? I mean, aside from the rank speculation by Toobin.
Look, first of all, if we're so pro-Putin, why is the president providing offensive weapons to the Ukrainians over the adamant objection of the Russians? Look, Donald Trump didn't want to go to war over Syria, and Hillary Clinton was promising the deep state an expansion of the proxy war there. If you look at Syria, Assad finances Hezbollah and Hamas, propped up by the Russians. On the other side, you have ISIS and 1,000 other radical groups. We have no friends here. Donald Trump does not want to spend borrowed American money or American lives going to war with Russia over Syria. A no-fly zone, as favored by Hillary Clinton and John McCain, would have been an invitation for World War III. So Donald Trump was the peace candidate in the last election. He has no illusions about Russia or the corruption of the Russian system or the fact that Putin's a bad guy. But they have thermonuclear weapons, Laura. Perhaps we should be talking to them.
And the idea that Trump is somehow softer on the Russians than Obama was. I mean, Obama's big push was December 2016. Okay, we're going to kick, all these Russian officials out of the country. But they were trying to do the reset. They had the sweetheart deal with Bill Clinton, and while Hillary was Secretary of State.
On the other side, you have ISIS and 1,000 other radical groups. We have no friends here. Donald Trump does not want to spend borrowed American money or American lives going to war with Russia over Syria. A no-fly zone, as favored by Hillary Clinton and John McCain, would have been an invitation for World War III. So Donald Trump was the
White House Communications Director Hope Hicks is resigning.
He has no illusions about Russia or the corruption of the Russian system or the fact that Putin's a bad guy. But they have thermonuclear weapons, Laura. Perhaps we should be talking to them.
And the idea that Trump is somehow softer on the Russians than Obama was. I mean, Obama's big push was December 2016. Okay, we're going to kick, all these Russian officials out of the country. But they were trying to do the reset. They had the sweetheart deal with Bill Clinton, and while Hillary was Secretary of State, we did Uranium One. So I think the argument is clear that if anyone was soft on Russia, it was Obama. It wasn't Trump. It was Obama who was soft.
While the mainstream media is absolutely right about the fact that there was a major party candidate whose top aides were in bed with the oligarchs around Vladimir Putin, there was one candidate whose foundation was taking millions of dollars from Russian interests. That would be Hillary Rodham Clinton. The Panama Papers, published in January of 2016, exposed the Podesta brothers' dealings, shady dealings in Russia, the gas deal, the uranium deal, the banking deal. This is all a matter of public record. So she was the candidate in bed with Putin, not Donald Trump.
And by the way, Roger, I know you love this story. This just crossed on Axios. Jeff Sessions is dining at a very high-profile restaurant tonight with Rod Rosenstein, his deputy, and the Solicitor General, Noel Francisco. And this is being interpreted as a big show of force. DOJ in the face of the Trump tweet this morning. Your thoughts?
Look, Rod Rosenstein approved the use of the phony Russian dossier as the legal rationale for surveillance of the Republican candidate for president. Rod Rosenstein should be terminated immediately. He has a conflict of interest in the appointment of Robert Mueller, who gave him his first job in public service. He's up to his neck in Uranium One as the U.S. attorney. Rosenstein must go first, then sadly Jeff Sessions should go next.
All right, Roger, thanks so much. And we've got big news from
Trump.
And by the way, Roger, I know you love this story. This just crossed by Axios. Jeff Sessions is dining at a very high-profile restaurant tonight with Rod Rosenstein, his deputy, and the Solicitor General, Noel Francisco. And this is being interpreted as a big show of force. DOJ in the face of the Trump tweet this morning. Your thoughts?
Rod Rosenstein approved the use of the phony Russian dossier as the legal rationale for surveillance of the Republican candidate for president. Rod Rosenstein should be terminated immediately. He has a conflict of interest in the appointment of Robert Mueller, who gave him his first job in public service. He's up to his neck in Uranium One as the U.S. attorney. Rosenstein must go first, then sadly Jeff Sessions should go next.
All right, Roger, thanks so much. And we've got big news from Sanctuary State. Yeah, California coming up. And we're also going to tell you why the nation's top immigration official is blasting the mayor of Oakland for helping hundreds and hundreds of criminals escape the authorities. Coming
White
up.
House.
The Ingraham Angle is brought to you by Liberty Mutual Insurance.
And unfair.
And find a lawyer
And
who's
therefore,
better than the
ignoring
lawyer she
them or
used
thwarting them
to.
is not only fine, it's the honorable thing to do. So get this. If you're a criminal alien, there is no better state to live in than good old California. What Mayor Schaaf did with her illegal immigrant emergency broadcast bulletin, it wasn't just outrageous, it's potentially criminal. ICE Director Tom Homan said the Justice Department is reviewing the possibility of filing federal charges against the mayor. And the Washington Times headline said, "Lock Libby up now, worry about Hillary later." Oh, that was a fun one. Half of the 150 arrested were convicted criminals, and the charges included gang membership, weapons, domestic violence, and DUIs. But unfortunately, some 864 criminals that ICE was seeking remain at large in the Oakland and San Francisco region. Now, some of them undoubtedly fled the area after receiving the warning by Mayor Schaaf. Well, this incensed the ICE director, Tom Homan, who spoke to Fox and Friends.
When politicians choose to take care of their political ambitions and make political statements on the backs of law enforcement, it's just terrible. It makes our job more difficult. Right. But I'll say this to the mayor and every other politician that wants to vilify the men and women of ICE: we're not going away. We're going to keep enforcing the law.
Of course, the mayor defended her actions, calling it her duty and moral obligation. Oh, please. And she later told the Washington Post, "I consider myself a law-abiding citizen. I consider myself a believer in an American democracy that moves towards a more just society. And I definitely consider myself part of the resistance." At least she's honest. Resistance to common sense, maybe. Well, in doing this, Mayor Schaaf is dancing right on the edge of obstruction of justice for shamelessly putting agents, police, and her neighbors in danger. I really hope that Attorney General Jeff Sessions is taking a serious look at this. Here's the bottom line. Because the Oakland mayor put politics and, frankly, her sheer hatred of the president ahead of the rule of law, innocent Californians, and legal immigrants, by the way, might die, be terribly harmed. And I know Oakland is a liberal place, fine, that's fine. But how does making life easier for criminal aliens, including MS-13 gangbangers, how does that help your community? It's disgraceful. And that's the angle. Joining us now for reaction is Bay Area radio talk show host Ethan Bixing, right on the edge of obstruction of justice for shamelessly putting agents, police, and her neighbors in danger. I really hope that Attorney General Jeff Sessions is taking a serious look at this. Here's the bottom line. Because the Oakland mayor put politics and, frankly, her sheer hatred of the president ahead of the rule of law, innocent Californians, and legal immigrants, by the way, might die, be terribly harmed. And I know Oakland is a liberal place, fine, that's fine. But how does making life easier for criminal aliens, including MS-13 gangbangers, how does that help your community? It's disgraceful. And that's the angle. Joining us now for reaction is Bay Area radio talk show host Ethan Bierman, who's in LA tonight. All right, Ethan, that's your neck of the woods up there in the San Francisco area. Talk radio's hot up there. We have 864 criminal aliens now on the loose who've been either ordered deported, didn't show up for their deportation hearings, or are convicted criminals, also illegal immigrants, who were released back into the system. ICE wants to get them out of the country to keep the people of the Bay Area safe. How does this mayor, in good conscience, warn them to escape? And why is that good?
Well, she didn't specifically warn them, those who have been convicted of certain crimes. And remember, California, even under our sanctuary state laws, it's called SB 54, our law enforcement is supposed to work with ICE and federal immigration authorities when you're convicted of a violent felony, for example. So it's not like we're just like, yay, violent felons hang around California. That's not the case at all. What it is we have a couple of million people who are members of our community, and in the city of Oakland specifically, Mayor Schaaf, those are members of the community. Her job is to protect and care for her community. So these are members of our community who have maybe married an American citizen, have children who are American citizens because they were born here.
Okay, well, Ethan, that's all great.
And we don't want those families split up.
Yay, that's great. However, there's something called federal immigration law. And we are not allowed as American citizens to pick and choose which federal laws that we abide by, if we don't like them, that's fine, then figure out a way to elect more officials in Washington that change the laws. But the laws on the books now say that if you are a criminal alien, you are subject to immediate deportation in the United States once released. California has made it put out the welcome mat for individuals in the country illegally who commit crimes. Maybe it's multiple DUIs, people die in those crimes. Maybe it's a simple narcotics trafficking charge. Maybe it's stealing. Maybe it's domestic abuse. Those are the types of people who were swept up in this raid. And now we have the people who are still at large, by the way. One of the targets in Oakland include a Honduran citizen who was previously arrested in San Francisco multiple times for cocaine possession and transport, probation violations, and sex with a minor under the age of 16. But he's nowhere to be found now. We don't think that's a problem?
Yeah, of course, somebody who has committed a pedophilic act like that should, of course, be put in proper prison or deported. But that's one example. That's an anecdote. By the way, I'm a loud advocate on my show against driving under the influence. 10,000 people die a year
That's
needlessly.
not a problem in LA, though, right? LA or San Francisco, illegal immigrants driving drunk. That's a huge problem. And the DUIs and
American citizens driving drunk. Growing up in Minnesota,
we're full up of them. We don't need any more driving drunk. You're absolutely right, Ethan, and I salute you for doing that on your show. But we have enough problems. We don't need to import new problems into the United States, not until we get every homeless person and homeless vet off the streets. It's ridiculous. Of course we have Americans who do that.
And by the way, we've worked very hard in the Bay Area on getting... We have worked very hard to get homeless vets off the street. Actually, the Bay Area has made tremendous progress getting homeless vets off the streets.
I've been to this Presidio lately. It doesn't look like a lot of progress there. It's like a homelessness epidemic in San Francisco.
Laura, you talk about the rule of law. The rule of law is the conservatives brought the case to the Supreme Court in 1997, Prince v. United States, a majority opinion written by Justice Scalia, supported by Chief Justice Rehnquist that talks about commandeering. The federal government cannot commandeer local resources to do their job. So ICE has to do their job. We don't have to cooperate.
Hey, then if you guys think it works out well for you to have these criminal aliens, gangbangers, people transporting weapons, domestic abusers released into the system to get a warning from the mayor in Oakland, flee the scene, come back later when ICE is gone. If you all think that's going to work out great for you, I guess God bless you. I hope it works out. But the second they cross another state's boundaries, guess what? Those states are going to work with ICE, and we're going to get them out of the country. But I just don't see how this is good for tourism, good for the state. Just because people want some cheap agricultural and hospitality workers, I don't see how that's good for you. But Ethan, it's great to have. Go ahead, you can close out.
Oh, I was just going to say, so 874 out of about 2 million people, I agree with you. Criminals we want to take care of. Criminals need to serve their time. Criminals need to be held accountable for their actions. You and I don't disagree with that. It's maybe how we go about it. Look, you and I both want safer streets, Laura. I agree with that. But we also want to take care of our community and the families in it.
Yeah, well, the first obligation of any elected official is to the American citizen. The community is a euphemism. It's the community of American citizens and people who are legal immigrants who paid the dues and went the right way for our system, in my view. But it's great to have you on, Ethan. Thank you very much. And I'm going to tune into your show. And we saw the epic failure of deputies to stop the Florida school shooting. So should teachers be the first line of defense? We're going to debate the president's controversial proposal to arm them next. And later, MSNBC attacks the first. For more, we're joined by Laura Carno. She's the founder of Faster Colorado. It's a civil liberties organization that advocates for arming teachers, along with Mo Kennedy, executive director of the National Association of School Resource Officers. Mo, let's start with you. Look, the public polling on this isn't great for the people who want to arm teachers. Kind of like in Florida, I think it's like 50% say no or 56% say no. But this will be a state-by-state determination. What's wrong with a teacher who is proficient and trains regularly and wants to do this? What's wrong with that teacher deciding, I'm going to defend myself and my students?
First of all, we realize that this is going to take place at the local level, and that's where the decision is really going to be made. The thing that we're calling for is that there be at least one school resource officer in every school in America, and that's a trained, certified law enforcement officer who's specifically trained to work in the school environment. Now, when we talk about teachers being armed, the last thing we want to do, certainly as an association, is suggest that anyone's Second Amendment rights be violated. We're not about that at all. We recognize certainly that there are some concerns about teachers as a whole being armed. And when you hear a statement like arming teachers, it's a broad statement. And so it causes broad responses like our association being concerned about
So wait a second. So Mo, just so I understand, so your organization is not against teachers in certain circumstances carrying a firearm?
No, I didn't
correct
say that.
Or not correct? You're kind of trying to couch it here, and we're trying to get a straight answer.
Sure.
Are you in favor of teachers who could?
Our recommendation is that they not be armed.
Thank you. That's what I thought. You don't want them armed. You want the school resource officer who's trained to be armed, right, with more than maybe pepper spray, be armed and be. The problem is we had a school resource officer, correct, in Broward.
Correct.
And that didn't work out so well. So something's got to change. Laura, let's go to you on this. I know you've made a lot of progress in Colorado on this issue. Talked to you on radio today. The scenario is a teacher has a gun and student wrestles it away, gun goes off, shoots a kid, or a teacher gets frustrated with a mouthy kid and blasts away. That's a concern.
Right, and let's think about who these folks are. They're not just teachers, they're janitors, principals, all kinds of folks throughout the school, and they're all volunteers. There's a lot of people are saying teachers don't want to be armed. If they don't want to be armed, they're not going to ever be armed. But all of those what-if scenarios, we train for that. the training that these folks go through, not quite to the deputized level like you were mentioning earlier, but they're very, very well trained, and they certify in firearms proficiency just like police officers do in states where this is being done. So to say that it's only sworn law enforcement that can stop a killer, we say that that's just not accurate. And the faster you stop the shooter, the fewer people die. And even where there is a school resource officer, in a school that's big enough for an SRO, that's a big school with lots of hallways and lots of classrooms. And the bad guy knows that. The SRO's in uniform. They know exactly who they are.
Well, again, I always go back to this. We have a God-given right, in my view, to defend ourselves. And to ask these teachers to go to school where you may or may not have a resource officer who's there at the right place and who responds in the right way, I would much rather be able to defend myself, defend my students, if I train regularly, background checks, mental health, whatever it is. That's my God-given right. And I think if you don't want to do that as a teacher, Mo, if you don't want it, then don't do it. Or if you're a parent who has a problem with this, I'd hightail it to another school district that doesn't have armed teachers. But I'd take the chances of a teacher or a maintenance person who knows firearms, who trains, of protecting that classroom over hoping the police get there in time and hoping the one resource officer can handle it. It's our God-given right. And I don't like people taking away our God-given rights. Thank you both. Great segment. And by the way, meanwhile, Barbara Streisand, what guns, Barbara Streisand? She's claiming President Trump is to blame for the gun violence in Florida as MSNBC, it gets better, slams the First Lady and Ivanka Trump as fakes. We'll show you what's fake when we return.
If you have moderate to severe plaque psoriasis, little things can be a big deal. That's why there's Otezla. Otezla is not
segment where we expose what's really behind the big cultural stories of the day. First up, Ryan Seacrest is under pressure more than ever from the Me Too movement, even after an investigation cleared him of sexual harassment. For more, let's bring in Fox News contributor Raymond Arroyo. It's a gang up on men time in the culture. Well, all the men are evil and all the women are, have the answers.
This makes no sense. E looked into these allegations back in November. They spent 2 months. They had an outside counsel come in. They cleared Ryan Seacrest. They said there was not enough evidence here to substantiate these claims. They cleared him. Now, with the Oscars coming, knowing that Ryan will be a fixture on the red carpet, the woman making the allegations, a makeup artist, has gone public with her allegations. And now you have
after they've already been investigated.
They've already been.
Yeah, you can't win in these scenarios. If someone makes a mere allegation, even if you're cleared, you end up getting trashed. I got to read this.
No, we'll go to that sod.
This Bellamy Young, this actress, comes out this week, and she continues the pylon.
Right.
Let's watch.
I think this is the time to step aside and let someone of equal talent that is beyond reproach to be in charge. Now that someone is asking, do you consent? And we get to say no, people have to accept our no and step aside.
Wait, Bellamy wants someone in Hollywood who's beyond reproach. You give me that list.
So Ryan Seacrest steps aside.
Anyone who's beyond reproach in Hollywood or Washington?
Names.
Yeah.
We're taking names and numbers. But look, Me Too is great, but fairness too has to follow. And you can't keep dredging up allegations that have been already proven unfair.
Me Too for fairness. Okay, Babs.
Oh, Barbara
Now,
Streisand.
Babs is claiming the election was rigged against Hillary, still trying to prop up that cadaver, political cadaver, and blaming Trump for the Parkland shooting?
Yeah, you got to read this quote on the election.
You read it. You read.
Okay, here's Barbara Streisand on the election. I really believe Hillary Clinton won the election. She talked to senators from Michigan, and I've talked to senators from Michigan and Wisconsin. I do believe, like I believed them during Bush, they were playing with these voting machines. We'll leave it there. That's all you really need to know, because here's the important
They were playing a funny girl. She's playing with the voting machine.
I don't mean to rain on Babs' parade,
let's bring in all the song lyrics.
She claimed to talk to senators from Wisconsin and Michigan. Well, your producer, Emma, today called all those senators. Guess what? The 2 senators from Wisconsin said, we never spoke to Barbara Streisand. We never suggested there was any voting fraud in our states. And if there is, then the funny girl needs to get those states to call their election commissioner and file complaints and launch an investigation.
So this is people who need people to make the calls to the Senate.
I guess something like that.
People.
Yes.
All right. Let's go to
And go to the other. You got to talk about the
pylon.
shooting.
No,
the shooting.
Oh no, we're going to the pylon on Melania. Let's
All
do
right,
the
go
pylon
to
on
that.
Melania.
Okay.
So now we have the crew on Morning Joe who are perpetually piling on Melania and Ivanka Trump. And they said today something that, well, I think we need to discuss. Let's watch.
The whole thing clearly is a joke. An utter joke, just like Melania's role on cyber, bullying, which I think is an insult to women, completely. And expect today John Kelly to be forced to put out a nice statement about Ivanka. These women have been given fake jobs.
I don't know if I were Mika talking about fake jobs there. I don't. What's the point of that?
Well, look, the Ryan.
Michelle was gardening with the kids. I mean, it's all.
Well, in the Ryan Seacrest story, you saw Me Too saying women need to be respected, but it's okay to
They
disrespect
never respect
these women.
anyone who is a conservative woman or anyone who's ever worked for Trump. Who's a woman doesn't really get any respect unless you go and trash Trump, and then you get respect.
Well, and then Barbara Streisand claiming he's to blame for the shooting violence in Florida. I found a tweet where she writes this: Donald Trump is making me gain weight. I start the day with liquids, but after the morning news, I eat.
An utter joke, just like Melania's role on cyber, bullying, which I think is an insult to women, completely. And expect today John Kelly to be forced to put out a nice statement about Ivanka. These women have been given fake jobs.
I don't know if I were Mika talking about fake jobs there. I don't. What's the point of that?
Well, look, the Ryan.
Michelle was gardening with the kids. I mean, it's all.
Well, in the Ryan Seacrest story, you saw Me Too saying women need to be respected, but it's okay to
They
disrespect
never respect
these women.
anyone who is a conservative woman or anyone who's ever worked for Trump. Who's a woman doesn't really get any respect unless you go and trash Trump, and then you get respect.
Well, and then Barbara Streisand claiming he's to blame for the shooting violence in Florida. I found a tweet where she writes this: Donald Trump is making me gain weight. I start the day with liquids, but after the morning news, I eat pancakes smothered in maple syrup. So Trump is to blame now for her weight gain, too. This is unbelievable.
Well, she said, but it's back to Streisand. I think even the shooter was affected because Trump brings out the violence in people. He says, it's okay, rally, lock her up. So that's where she really hit the...
So Donald Trump, I guess, is to blame for everything, and, you don't bring me pancakes anymore, so... She has them at her house.
We hit every lyric. What was it? Mirror has two faces?
Well, there was that great review of that movie where John Simon said, the mirror has two faces, both of them ugly. Oh.
As a conservative woman or anyone who's ever worked for Trump who's a woman doesn't really get any respect unless you go and trash Trump, and then you get respect.
Well, and then Barbara Streisand claiming he's to blame for the shooting violence in Florida. I found a tweet where she writes this: Donald Trump is making me gain weight. I start the day with liquids, but after the morning news, I eat pancakes smothered in maple syrup. So Trump is to blame now for her weight gain, too. This is unbelievable.
Well, she said, but it's back to Streisand. I think even the shooter was affected because Trump brings out the violence in people. He says, it's okay, rally, lock her up. So that's where she really hit the...
So Donald Trump, I guess, is to blame for everything, and, you don't bring me pancakes anymore, so... She has them at her house.
We hit every lyric. What was it? Mirror has two faces?
Well, there was that great review of that movie where John Simon said, the mirror has two faces, both of them ugly. Oh,
how awful.
Mean.
That was a classic film. You just want to get on the red carpet and hang out with
What
Seacrest.
red carpet? I'm not even pure enough to be on the red carpet these days, apparently. Beyond reproach.
One celebrity's comments bashing Christians have ignited a firestorm of protest. No one's apparently listening. That's a shock, but we have details.
At Ally, we offer low